story of betrayal, broken, redeemed, NNEDI'S silent cry. In a web of betrayal and danger, redemption becomes the only path to hope. Will they find a path to forgiveness, or will their mistakes cost them everything? A young girl's disappearance unravels a chilling conspiracy that puts her life and her captor's family in jeopardy. When NNEDI falls into the clutches of a dangerous trafficking ring, Norah, the woman who mistreated her, must risk everything to bring her back. As the clock ticks down, betrayal, revenge, and guilt collide in a gripping fight for survival. With danger closing in and guilt gnawing at her conscience, Norah must embark on a harrowing journey to rescue NNEDI. Along the way, she discovers that redemption isn't just about words. It's about action, sacrifice, and the courage to stand against the darkness. Will they escape the shadows of their past, or will their mistakes haunt them forever? Like and subscribe to Educative African Tales channel as we delve into this thrilling story of NNEDI'S silent cry. Enjoy.
Norah was a woman known for her sharp tongue and iron fist. To NNEDI, the young house help entrusted to her care, life in Norah's house was a daily battle. Norah barked orders, delivered punishments without a second thought, and left no room for kindness. Her husband, Odina, had cautioned her many times. He would say, his voice heavy with concern,
"Norah, you cannot treat another person's child like this. You may regret it one day."
But Norah only scoffed.
Regret what? She should be grateful she's not begging on the streets.
One humid afternoon, Norah left for her village, Asata, for a family gathering, leaving NNEDI alone in the house. Days of resentment boiled over in NNEDI's heart as she scrubbed the floors, tears mingling with the soapy water. Her bruises, both visible and invisible, were too much to bear. That night, driven by despair, she packed a small bag and slipped out of the house under the cover of darkness. She had no plan, no destination, only the overwhelming urge to escape. But as she wandered the dimly lit streets, her heart pounding with fear and hope, a van screeched to a stop beside her. Before she could react, strong hands grabbed her, and a cloth pressed over her mouth plunged her into unconsciousness. When Norah returned from Asata, she expected the house to be in perfect order and NNEDI waiting to attend to her every demand. Instead, she was met with silence. NNEDI was nowhere to be found. At first, Norah assumed the girl was hiding out of laziness. But hours passed, and there was no sign of her. Panic began to creep into Norah's voice as she questioned the neighbors, her friends, even the local market vendors. Odina came home to find his wife pacing the living room, her face pale. He asked,
"What's wrong?"
"It is NNEDI. She's gone. I don't know where she is."
Odina's expression darkened. His words hung ominously in the air.
Did she run away? Or worse?
Days turned into weeks, and the search for NNEDI deepened. Every clue led to a dead end. A neighbor reported seeing a suspicious van in the area that night, but no one could identify it. The police got involved, but their updates were sparse and filled with uncertainty. Guilt gnawed at Norah, turning her days into restless nights. Odina's earlier warning echoed in her mind like a curse. And then came the first call. It was late at night when the phone rang. Norah picked up, her hand trembling. A distorted voice on the other end said,
"If you want to see the girl again, you'll do exactly what we say."
Norah's breath caught in her throat. Her heart pounded as she clutched the phone tighter. She stammered, her voice barely a whisper. She asked,
What do you want?"
The voice on the other end chuckled, a low, chilling sound.
"You'll find out soon enough. Don't try anything foolish, or she'll disappear forever."
The line went dead. Norah stood frozen, the phone still pressed to her ear. When Odina walked in and saw her pale, trembling form, he snatched the phone from her hand.
What happened? Who was that?
They have her. My husband, they have her, they have NNEDI. They said I have to do what they say."
Norah managed to say, her voice breaking, Odina's jaw clenched.
This is why I warned you, Norah. You've made an enemy of someone, or worse, you've driven that poor girl into the hands of monsters.
As dawn broke, the phone rang again. This time, the voice was more direct.
You'll bring 7 million naira in cash to the old train station on the edge of town by midnight. No police. No tricks. Come alone, or the girl pays the price.
Norah's head spun. 7 million naira. It was an amount they couldn't easily gather. She turned to Odina, tears streaming down her face.
What are we going to do? We don't have that kind of money.
We'll find a way, but we're not doing this alone.
Odina said and shook his head. Despite the kidnapper's warning, Odina involved the police. A plan was set in motion, but it came with risks. Norah, racked with guilt and fear, felt every hour tick by like a countdown to disaster. When midnight arrived, Norah stood at the abandoned train station, clutching a bag filled with what the police managed to scrape together. Half the demanded sum and bundles of fake bills. The air was heavy, the silence broken only by the distant sound of crickets. A shadow emerged from the darkness. A man in a hooded jacket stepped forward, his face obscured.
The money.
He demanded, his voice low and menacing. Norah hesitated, her hands shaking as she extended the bag.
Where is the girl?
She asked, her voice cracking. The man snatched the bag and smirked.
You will find her, if you are lucky.
Before Norah could react, a noise shattered the tense moment, a loud whistle from the police hidden nearby. Chaos erupted as officers stormed the area. The man tried to flee, but they were prepared. He was tackled to the ground, and the bag of money spilled onto the dusty tracks. Where's the girl? One officer barked, pinning the man down. But the man only laughed, a cold, eerie sound that sent chills down Norah's spine. He sneered. As the police dragged him away, Odina approached Norah.
This is not over. We need to find Needy. If he wasn't walking alone, she could still be in danger.
Norah, trembling, could only nod. The weight of her actions pressed down on her like a heavy shroud. For the first time, she realized the true cost of her cruelty.
But where was Needy? And who else was pulling the strings in this horrifying game?
As the hooded man was hauled away, his chilling laughter echoed in the night. Norah clung to Odina, her knees threatening to give way. We'll find her, Odina assured her, though doubt flickered in his eyes. Back at the police station, the interrogation of the captured man yielded little. He was tight-lipped, refusing to divulge where Neddy was being held. But a single clue was uncovered, a scrap of paper in his pocket with an address scrawled hastily on it. The address led to a decrepit warehouse on the outskirts of the city. The building stood in eerie silence, its windows shattered, and its walls covered in graffiti. A team of officers, along with Odina and a trembling Norah, arrived in the dead of night. As they entered the warehouse, the stench of damp and decay filled their noses. Flashlights cut through the darkness, revealing abandoned machinery and piles of discarded crates. Then they heard it, a faint, muffled cry. Over here. One officer called out, rushing toward the sound. Hidden behind a stack of crates was Neddy, bound and gagged, her eyes wide with terror. Norah gasped, tears streaming down her face as she ran to the girl. She cried, falling to her knees.
Needy, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Neddy flinched at Norah's touch, her body trembling with fear. Odina quickly stepped in, cutting the ropes that bound her and pulling her into his arms. She's safe now, he whispered, though his voice was heavy with sadness. But just as they began to breathe a sigh of relief, a deafening sound shattered the quiet, a gunshot. Get down, an officer shouted, and chaos erupted. A group of masked men burst into the warehouse, weapons drawn. It was clear the man they had arrested wasn't acting alone. The kidnappers had come to reclaim their prize, or silence her for good. Odina shielded Neddy as officers returned fire, the sound of gunshots echoing through the cavernous space. Norah crouched behind a crate, her heart pounding in her chest. The guilt and terror she had felt before now multiplied tenfold. In the chaos, one of the masked men grabbed Neddy, dragging her toward a side exit. She screamed, her voice piercing through the commotion. "No!" Norah cried, a surge of adrenaline propelling her forward. She grabbed a heavy pipe from the ground and swung it with all her strength, striking the man in the leg. He collapsed with a grunt, releasing Neddy. The police quickly subdued the remaining kidnappers, and the room fell into an uneasy silence. Neddy clung to Odina, sobbing uncontrollably, while Norah stood frozen, the pipe still in her hands. When it was finally over, the officers led the captives away. The man who had been struck by Norah turned to her with a venomous glare. "You think this is over?" he hissed. "It's just the beginning." Back at home, the family tried to recover, but the ordeal had left scars. Neddy refused to speak to Norah, her once lively eyes now haunted and distant. Norah, consumed by guilt, made every effort to earn the girl's trust. She cooked Neddy's favorite meals, spoke to her gently, and even took her to therapy. But it wasn't until one quiet evening, when Norah found Neddy crying alone in her room, that the dam finally broke, tears streaming down her face.
I know I've hurt you, and I don't expect you to forgive me. But I promise I will spend the rest of my life making it up to you. You are not just a house help, you're family.
For the first time, Neddy looked at her, and though her eyes were filled with pain, there was also a flicker of something else, hope. Meanwhile, the police discovered that the kidnapping was part of a larger human trafficking ring. The remaining members were still out there, and they were watching. Norah and her family were placed under police protection, but the threat loomed like a shadow. Every creak of the floorboards, every unfamiliar face in the neighborhood sent chills down Norah's spine. She knew the danger wasn't over, but she also knew one thing. She would fight tooth and nail to protect Neddy, no matter what. Because now, she understood what it meant to truly care for someone, and the cost of failing to do so. The weeks following Neddy's rescue were a delicate balancing act between rebuilding trust and securing safety. Though the kidnappers had been apprehended, their chilling warning lingered in the air like an unshakable storm cloud. Norah threw herself into caring for Neddy. She no longer barked orders or treated her like a servant. Instead, she asked Neddy how she was feeling, if she needed anything, and even joined her in her therapy sessions. But Neddy remained guarded. The trauma of her kidnapping and the years of mistreatment had built a wall around her heart. Norah realized that words alone wouldn't be enough. She had to show through her actions that things had changed. Meanwhile, Odina worked closely with the police, who had uncovered a sinister web of human trafficking. The masked men at the warehouse were part of a larger ring, and the authorities were racing against time to dismantle it. One night, as Norah sat with Neddy, trying to read her a bedtime story, the girl finally spoke. "Why do you care now?" Neddy asked, her voice quiet but firm. Norah froze, the weight of the question hitting her like a tidal wave. She closed the book and looked at Neddy, her eyes glistening with tears.
Because I've realized how wrong I was, Norah said, her voice trembling. You've suffered so much because of me, and I can never undo that. But I promise you, Neddy, I will never let anyone hurt you again. Not even me.
Neddy's gaze softened, though she didn't say anything. It was a small step, but it gave Norah hope. The traffickers strike back. Late one night, the phone rang again. Norah hesitated before answering, her heart pounding. "You didn't think we'd let this go, did you?" a cold voice said. "You've meddled in things you don't understand. Watch your back." The line went dead, but the message was clear. The traffickers wanted revenge. The next morning, Odina found a threatening note pinned to their front door. It read, "We always get what we want." The family's police protection was immediately doubled. Officers patrolled the neighborhood, and the house was equipped with security cameras. Despite the precautions, the tension was suffocating. Then, one evening, Neddy's school bag went missing. A neighbor reported seeing a suspicious man lingering near the house. Panic set in as the family realized the traffickers were watching them closely, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Odina and Norah decided to take matters into their own hands. Working with the police, they devised a plan to lure the traffickers out into the open. Norah would serve as bait, pretending to make a ransom payment in exchange for their safety. The plan was dangerous, but Norah insisted on doing it. "I owe it to Neddy," she said firmly.
We'll give you what you want.
As the traffickers approached, the police, who had been lying in wait, sprang into action. A tense standoff ensued, with gunshots ringing through the air. Norah ducked behind a pillar, her heart racing. In the chaos, one of the traffickers grabbed Norah, holding a knife to her throat. He shouted, "Stop, or she dies." From the shadows, Neddy appeared, clutching a heavy piece of wood. With a burst of courage, she swung it at the man, striking him in the arm. He dropped the knife, and the officers quickly subdued him. When it was over, Neddy collapsed into Norah's arms, sobbing. Norah held her tightly, whispering, "It's over. You're safe now." The remaining members of the trafficking ring were arrested, and the police assured the family that the danger had passed. In the months that followed, Neddy slowly began to heal. She started smiling again, even laughing at times. Norah and Odina worked tirelessly to provide her with the love and stability she had long been denied. One day, as they sat together at the dinner table, Neddy looked at Norah and said, "Thank you for not giving up on me." Norah's eyes filled with tears. "You're my family, Neddy. I'll never stop fighting for you." Though the scars of the past remained, the family moved forward, united by the trials they had faced and the lessons they had learned. Thank you for watching. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, please. Cheers!